was a hit piece that was put out about Bernie that was a really funny piece. I had mentioned earlier that Bernie Sanders attended 39 rallies in the last 3 months or in the general election, 3 months of in support of Clinton. 17 rallies in the last 7 days. There was a Politico piece put out that quotes 4 or 5, one named and the other anonymous, Clinton campaign staffers, saying that ex-Clinton staffers slam Sanders over private jet flights. And the story was that the Clinton people apparently were upset because Sanders wanted charter planes. And I'll just read a little bit from this Okay, so according to, here it is. I'm not shocked, says this guy, that while thousands of volunteers braved the heat and cold to knock on doors until their fingers bled in a desperate effort to stop Donald Trump, His Royal Majesty King Bernie Sanders, this is a quote,
Bernie's very regal,
would only deign to leave his plush D.C. office or his brand new second home on the lake if he was flown around on a cushy private jet like a billionaire master of the universe, said Zach Petkanas, who is the director of rapid response for the Clinton campaign, who does not know the value of subtlety when trying to sound legit. And it comes out, the Sanders campaign preferred mode of travel quickly emerges as a point of tension, according to 6 former Clinton staffers and another source familiar with the travel. The senator ended up flying private. It's actually charter. I don't know what the distinction is, but on 3 separate. Now listen to this. Here we go.
That was
on 3 separate multi-day trips in the last 2 months of the campaign. All right, so 3 separate multi-day trips. Prior to working out the logistics of Sanders' travel, quote, our working assumption was that 90% of the time it would be commercial, said another person familiar with the matter. If he was trying to hop from city to city in a particular state and commercial didn't work, we were open to chartering a plane. So they anticipated 10% of his travel would be on charters. They have a quote from a Sanders spokesperson saying it would have been possible to do all this. And then later in the piece, they say, okay, Sanders held 39 rallies in 13 states on behalf of Clinton's campaign, according to Jones, 17 events in 11 states in the last week alone. Okay. Forget about that.
They were literally trying to kill him.
We actually have some numbers here. And I did some news. I did some math, I should say, which is news because I did some math. So 39 rallies, right? Presumably, let's just say 1 rally a day. They had 17 rallies in 7 days. So they did 2 and then 1 day, probably 3, 2 days, 3 over the course of those 7 days. So there were, you had 30 days of him actually going out, taking plane travel. Now it's back and forth. So it's really more, trips than that. But let's just say 30. He took a private jet on 3 days. Now, according to my math, 3 equals 10% of 30. In which case, what they anticipated, which was 90% of his travel would be commercial, actually happened. They wrote a 4-page story, ultimately, that Bernie ended up traveling by charter in the exact percentage that they assumed that he would.
Wow.
I'd like to fly high planes. Put me in a socialist jet. I'll pretend to support Hillary, but it needs to be the best.
There you
Right. Like if
Put
anything,
me in high planes, fly around here, take me from Vermont, any fucking where.
But this is what it's going to be. There's going to be a series of hit pieces from people who are upset or worried about Bernie, and the narrative apparently they're going to end up having to find another narrative because that they anticipated Bernie would only use chartered jets in support of Clinton's campaign 10% of the time, and then do an expose that shows that he used chartered jets 10% of the time is just not going to further the narrative.
Well, it's great that there are so many conflicting narratives against him, right? Because he's being attacked by the right and the center, and they don't tend to work together, those two sides. So, if anything, this is going to help him in the primary with people who are concerned that he didn't help Hillary enough.
Indeed. Now, the attack on Bernie for supposedly using chartered jets in support of campaigning for Hillary Clinton, yes, he's attacked as supposedly a hypocrite to his socialism or democratic socialism, as he made a point of saying at the CNN thing the other night. But Tucker Carlson also enjoys it because it's more part of his the elite are hypocritical.
This is a segment he wanted to do with Rutger Bregman.
Yeah, this is the one he wanted to do with Rutger Bregman, where it's he'll tell you that we have a problem with global climate change, but he took a chartered jet.
Yeah, I bet he wears a coat in the winter, too.
Exactly. Here it is.
So they say it a lot. They demand that you repeat it. They require that you believe it. They attack you if you don't. Any evidence of doubt makes you a denier. But do they themselves believe it? That's an interesting question and rarely asked. When he was campaigning for Hillary Clinton in 2016, Bernie Sanders repeatedly demanded private jet access for himself and his entourage. Over the past 3 years, according to a report in Politico, Sanders has spent almost $350,000 on private flights. How can you justify that if you believe the world is ending because of climate change?
All right, so that's the premise. And so
it's like Entourage, Jeff Weaver, Bernie Sanders, Tad Devine. Jeff is Vinny. Or excuse me, obviously Bernie's Vinny.
So they Tucker brought on Mark Green. Not Mark Green. Adam Green. Oh my God.
Adam,
sorry,
Adam
Green,
like and respect,
friend of show, head of the PCCC or co-founder of the PCCC. I think is his title. And I think he's. I think they're Warren folk over there at the PCCC. But nevertheless, here he is basically telling Tucker, "You're ridiculous, Tucker." And Tucker is having a tough time lately with guests who don't agree with him. I feel like something's going on maybe with Tucker, that he's lost a step.
Am I hitting a wall?
The point is that if you believe that carbon emissions are destroying the earth, that's too many houses, that's too much consumption, that's too much carbon. You lead by example. Why is it the people who are trying to control my life and tell me what I can do and can't do and how many kids I can have don't bother to restrain themselves?
Again,
that's not silly. It's true.
It's silly. It's a fake hypocrisy argument. You're basically saying that, if you believe that Facebook has bad privacy policies, you shouldn't check Facebook every day. If you believe you want a better job, you shouldn't go to work
I'm saying if you think adultery is wrong, don't cheat on your wife.
If you believe in having a better economy
attack other people
with tens of millions of jobs in the future in clean energy, of course he should spend the last few days of a campaign doing everything he can to fight for a Green Deal.
You should reduce your own emissions. No, it's really simple.
So
you
should walk to work. Should he walk from Vermont to D.C.?
Yes.
Should he walk from Vermont to D.C.? You just said yes. You just said yes. You should walk from Vermont to D.C. That shows the BS argument that you just described.
Okay.
Taking
a car.
What you're doing?
You are making excuses because all you want is power.
I've seen you make better arguments. I've seen you make better arguments.
Pause it for 1 second.
That's the most amazing juxtaposition.
Look at Adam Green. All he wants is power. It's so obvious. So obvious.
It's just the sneering sociopath cable news star.
But what happened to Tucker,
earnest,
where he
liberal, political?
This is it's also like the best dressed, with all due respect, Adam I've ever seen him. This is the power guy. All you want is power. That's why you decided to become a bold, just start a group called Bold Progressive.
And wear Target
What happened
blazers.
to Tucker that he lost a step? That's where you go to after, if you feel completely, they always tell you this in parenting, right? You don't go to threaten to take stuff away, because that communicates to the child that you have no power. And Tucker's doing that when he's like, all you want is to take over the world.
Did you hear how he shoehorned in having kids to that too? Like Maoist Bernie with the one-child policy.
Well, it's actually it's Green who wants to keep people from having children.
Exposing
from Vermont
You're
to DC.
exposing the shallowness
Anybody who
of
takes
your
a car,
own argument.
Anybody who takes any
This
plane
is idiotic.
Is it idiotic? You just said he should walk from Vermont to DC. Obviously, you don't believe that.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't believe
I'm sorry.
that. He's not a hypocrite for doing
No,
that.
I'm sorry, I
He
can't hear
believes
you.
in tens of millions of
Okay.
new jobs in the clean energy economy.
This is
What's wrong with that?
idiotic what you're saying because look, you will
just said
never
he should walk
hold
from Vermont to
yourself
DC.
or your leaders.
You
Oh,
just
repeat
said
your dumb
he should
talking
walk
point
from
once
Vermont
more.
to DC. I asked if he should walk. You said yes. Come on, not a real argument.
You got me, Adam. You got me. You're a brilliant guy. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're gonna we have pictures apparently on this.
That, but unironically.
Oh my God, he was so mad. So mad. Unbelievable. There it is, Tucker Carlson. All right, let's just quickly check in with Adam Green. Adam? So, Adam Green, welcome to the show. You did a good job on Tucker Carlson. Was it fun?
Thank you. It was very fun. It was a blast.
Yeah, and do you anticipate that he will have you back again?
Probably no.
Right. All right, thanks, Adam. There you go. So we got word
Look at
from
power hungry
there
Adam
we go.
Green
So,
right there.
Look at that.
It reminds me, Luke Mayville. There's a Freedom, Idaho. Luke Mayville, who's doing work to
Yes.
expand Medicaid. There's
That's right.
Medicare in Idaho.
Medicaid expansion, Idaho.
They're
good friend
accusing him
mine.
of leading a band of agitators on Twitter. So
Right. No,
Two scary
because-
guys.
Well, right, because what happened was that they passed it overwhelmingly through referendum, and now the Republicans in the state house are trying to kill it, which basically subverts the state constitution. And so Luke, who like teaches like John Adams at Columbia, is tweeting things like "respect the will of the referendum."